And that's what I love about this type of technology. And it's going to be more than just a hype. And I think that's one of the common questions, that is Gen AI just a hype? Just like other examples that have been thrown around, like blockchain or the metaverse, or is this a hype? And I think that because this is such a cross-functional and such a collaborative type of technology, that people are already finding benefits with.
Welcome back to the Data Bytes podcast, everybody. I am joined with Peggy Tsai, the Chief Data Officer of Big ID. Previously, Peggy served as Vice President and Data and Analytics at Morgan Stanley, and she has been working in the industry for numerous years. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Cornell, and she also is a faculty member of Carnegie Mellon and teaches in their Chief Data and AI Officer Executive Program. Peggy, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. Really looking forward to this conversation.
It's my pleasure, Sadie, and I'm glad to be here as well.
So you travel all over the globe. I know we were just talking about where you came back from. And one of the main things is you consult and help chief data officers and chief AI officers. I'm curious, given your experience in the industry, what are some of the key challenges you're seeing right now that chief data officers and chief AI officers are facing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sadie. And the reason why I actually intentionally travel the world is I like to hear how different countries and regions are thinking about AI compliance. I like to compare and contrast the readiness. What I mean is the AI data readiness of the region. And it's always very interesting to me how much of it is driven by regulation, especially this, for example, the EU AI Act, and how much of it is more driven by innovation and just a want to do better and build better products. So I think a lot of the common themes amongst chief data officers is how do they add this new responsibility of AI and AI compliance into their already large suite of responsibilities, which included data management, data governance, analytics, um, data engineering as well. So it's really another big responsibility that they have to take on, especially if there's not a separate AI officer. Again, I think there's so much overlap that a data and an AI officer should really be the same person, just because of you can't have AI without the data responsibilities. It can't be in siloed, as well as data plays such a big part in AI technology and the AI processing. So it's really been fascinating for me to see companies wrestle this challenge of merging teams together or processes together and enhancing and probably enlarging their existing data governance program to now fit into AI. I think the only difference is how ready is each country and each region to really be proactive.
And are you seeing now with just the rise in popularity of AI and particularly Gen AI, organizations are finally understanding, hey, it's important for us to take care of our data to make sure we have good data quality, good processes and procedures around it, and are now reinvesting and putting that focus in on it? Or are they kind of jumping after the hot new flashy thing? What are you seeing from your side of things?
I see the whole spectrum, actually. Certainly, the majority of the companies that I work with and talk to, they're sort of in the middle of it, where they want to be realistic in terms of understanding the limitations of their talent in, suddenly doing a new technology and the investment that's going to have to go into purchasing new Gen AI tools. So I really see a healthy medium where they're using some of their existing technologies. Most common is, for example, Microsoft's Copilot, leveraging the Copilot capabilities that from technology vendors that they already use and trying it out with simple use cases and deploying it internally with guardrails. So these are very safe ways that organizations are allowing, what I would say a walled garden in terms of being able to test and produce internal value, and potentially seeing how that can further be expanded to other parts of the enterprise and other Gen AI use cases. So, very cautious but very healthy way of one determining that yes, they need to be in the Gen AI game. You're going to be a complete laggard amongst your industry if you're not even participating. And then two, making sure that they have the right privacy and security guardrails in place to ensure that the employees are using it safely and securely as well.
That brings up just a great point. Definitely being in any data role is a team sport, but particularly as a chief data officer or as a chief AI officer, you have to play and work really nicely with your chief security officers, your chief technology officers, information officers. Are you seeing AI and the rise of Gen AI kind of bring all of these different offices together because it does touch so many spheres, as you mentioned? Yes, we want to test it out, but we want to do it safely. Or has it changed the working dynamics of how the C suite from that technical side of things works together?
No, great question, Sadie. And I would say that Gen AI has been one of the few technologies that not just has brought the C suite together, it's brought the entire board, the board members together, the people that sit at the very top, the chairman of the company. And I think that's so powerful because they're, the influencers of the direction of the company. And if you have people that at the very top that are saying, well, what are we doing about Gen AI, right? What is this chat GPT, 2 years ago, and how can we use it? So a lot of it is, FOMO, fear of missing out. But a lot of it is also because everyone is doing it, it does make sense to um, visit internally how it can best be used and what benefits are for every company. And each company, different size, different sector, may see different benefits, whether it's in a marketing group that uses it for content generation or more in a technology team that uses it for code writing. So these are fairly basic and initial use cases that companies have talked about so far. I'm just excited for some of the groundbreaking Gen AI usages that's and products that are going to be coming out, hopefully in the near future. That's going to really blow all our minds away. But right now, safe to say, a lot of the companies that are using it have to work together with this technology officer, as you said, security and privacy. And that's what I love about this type of technology. And it's going to be more than just a hype. And I think that's one of the common questions, that is Gen AI just a hype? Just like other examples that have been thrown around like blockchain or the metaverse, or is this a hype? And I think that because this is such a cross-functional and such a collaborative type of technology that people are already finding benefits with. Imagine, Sadie, you and I not using ChatGPT or Gemini in any of our presentations or writing our blogs. There's no way I'm going back to a life before this. So for me, it's here to stay from a personal benefit perspective, but as well as I'm sure in organizations, employees can can see it really adding value to their day-to-day work.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking the other night, I was like, when I have kids, I'm going to tell them about how back in the day when I started work, I had to write emails from scratch, right? And, tell them how like I didn't have any of these editing tools or different agents to brainstorm with. And I'm like, I'm already going to sound so old by just describing the way we used to work and talking about how much more I love the way that we do work today. So yeah, I think you're spot on in terms of describing that. None of us want to go back to that state.
Mm. No, no, absolutely. I mean, the thing is that Gen AI is the it's relatively new, right, in the whole time span of AI, just because it's so interactive. But even a few years ago, we had Siri, Alexa, we had chatbots that we were interacting with. These are all efficiency, and anyone in data had been doing predictive analytics, machine learning, deep learning. It's been around for decades. So really, it's just come to a turning point, right, where now our parents and our grandparents all use these technologies. So that's why it's made it so universal and so common. And for me personally, it's made my job easier to explain to my family that don't know anything about data, because suddenly they do understand the concepts of the training data sets, the outputs of ChatGPT has to be based on good, sound, unbiased data. And they understand that when they see a bad result, an output, or incorrect direction, or incorrect result, they can understand why I talk about data quality. And it's almost like something that is so nebulous when it comes to data management. What is data management? What does data governance mean? And suddenly it makes it much more concrete, to my parents, and even to my son. I have a 12-year-old. He suddenly understands the importance of training on data and not having biased data infused into training models.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic kind of opened up this general population understanding that like data is important and making data driven decisions is really important, right? And getting real time data is important. And I think the Gen AI revolution has really opened up the conversation into okay, what data we put into those models and how we use those models are important. And for all of us like working in the industry, we're like, yes, more people we can actually talk to about this. I was on a plane a couple weeks ago and the stewardess was reading about AI when I went to the bathroom. I saw the gentleman next to me and I was like, this is so great. I love that I feel like everybody on this plane is reading and learning about AI. It's definitely exciting times.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's crossed so many different barriers, so it's been exciting as a data professional to really, I think, to be on the forefront of it, along with my privacy and technology peers.
You had mentioned that you're excited about where this technology will lead and some of the innovations that it will break through. What do you think is next on the horizon? A lot of organizations, as you mentioned, are starting with like Microsoft Copilot, providing those guidelines and policies on how to use it. But what's next? What comes next for that in terms of kind of organizational maturity using this technology and just the technology advancements in the field?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that's something that I'm trying to think about. Like, what obviously everyone's asking, what's really next, and I think that tools like Microsoft Copilot are going to dominate for many organizations. One, because it really comes out of the box. The models are already built out. It's just a matter of fine tuning it, and most companies don't have the technology and resources, so it will become a mainstay. But what I think that other companies would do that will have the resources is to build what I call small language models, more specific, um, models that are smaller and either domain specific, or it's built in a contextual way that is specific for the organization, specific for the business process, so that it will ensure higher accuracy. And you need less data because it's such a smaller, more fine-tuned way of doing things. So I think that organizations have very specific large scale use cases. So for example, in the banking industry, like know your customer is such a basic anti-fraud activity. Everyone, from mastercard to the banks, have a way of vetting their customers and really understanding the risk level of customers. So um, for them, it's the biggest risk as well as the biggest potential, for generating revenue. So that's such a hypersensitive area that they're going to build a small language model specifically to answer these questions. So I think the direction for companies that have the money, have the resources, is to build more customized large language models, again, to ensure higher level of privacy and security, and as well as to ensure that the accuracy is correct. what I also foresee, and we see some companies start doing this, is certainly putting these models externally to their customers. I think there's a lot of fine tuning, and we see some of the mistakes, like McDonald's and Air Canada, with some of the external models being revealed to the customers. But I think that's part of the learning curve. But I think a lot more of the generative AI models used in customer interactions will certainly be a big part. But for me, I still say that this is still level one in terms of what the potential of Gen AI is. And if you were to ask me what's the next level, I really can't tell. For me, I'm not deep enough into AI to really foresee, but I'm just waiting for my mind to be blown by really what's next to come. So it's just very exciting. I think we're all um, living and breathing this together. So it's just going to be exciting to see what's going to come next. But again, none of it is going to be trusted or innovative enough unless you have that strong data foundation and the data governance practice behind it.
Yeah, I think all the time, I'm like, how lucky am I to be alive at this time when we get to see really the birth of it and the explosion of it. And now, and so how so fast we get accustomed to it and addicted to the new releases. I mean, things are moving, as we all know, really quick in this space. I think they're on like 3 to 6 month type of release cycles. And so it's like, if every 6 months something new doesn't come out that blows our mind, we're like, hey, what's going on? We need we need that next little innovation that's happening in the space. But as you rightfully mentioned, no matter what, it still comes down to the quality of your data. And just given your extensive background within data management and governance, what can all companies be doing right now to really make sure that they're preparing their data in a way to be ready to use it for AI, whether that's use cases that they have today or even future technologies that are coming out here in the next 6 to 5 years?
So you'll be surprised, Sadie, by the data maturity level of many organizations. And even the largest global enterprises, right? Even the most highly regulated ones, it's always shocks me when I talk to them and I ask them about their data governance program. The facade is always focused on data analytics or building fancy BI dashboards. But what's more important is the people and the process that has to happen with data governance framework. What I mean by that are training people that are focused on data quality remediation, fixing data. You have a team of people that are working on understanding like data lineage and data usage across a company. Um, and really thinking about holistically how data is consistently or not consistently used across the organization. For example, if you're a business application developer and you want to create a new portal, front end portal, and where do you pull the data from, right? Are you your definition of transaction date, is that the same as what the sales team is thinking of? Is that the end date? And what is considered the end of a transaction date? Is that end date for New York time or London time? So there's so many specifics that need to happen when it comes to defining the usage of data and ensuring its consistency across different regions, across different business teams, and in your different technology teams. So that's like, for me, basic data governance 101 in terms of having this consistent language, definitions standardized across your business. Um, so that is always an overlooked step, because people don't want to really spend that difficult time because of mergers and acquisitions and legacy and people that are new to the organizations that don't really understand the full context of all this information, um, and just take it for granted. So this is hard work, and it's never ending work as well. The effort to really understand the data definition, terminology, usage, quality, it never ends. So that's why it's always such a burden for companies to rationalize the continued investment in this data foundation. But companies that I see that are successful certainly have the governance in place in terms of having the people, having the process. They are monitoring their progress. And they're also leveraging AI and machine learning to help them with data management activities and to help them identify their riskiest data that they need to focus on governance. And Sadie, the biggest thing that I've learned in my role as a chief data officer is the amount of work that's needed to govern unstructured data. So in the past 10, 15 years, when I was working at companies like Morgan Stanley, AIG, I predominantly focused my governance efforts on structured data, like our data warehouse, our data lakes. It was very simple. It was a table. I was able to analyze it and figure out everything about the quality and the lineage. But I never realized that my focus was actually only looking at maybe 20 or 30% of the company's data, and that the biggest risk was actually in the unstructured data. That's all the emails, all the Word documents that's saved in your SharePoint, your local drives, all now companies use like Slack and Teams to communicate. A lot of sensitive information is being shared back and forth, but no one has, so maybe your technology teams that are monitoring, your conversations, but there's no governance around that information. Exactly, um, is that information being stored somewhere, probably in a call log? But then, what is the retention policy to delete that data? Is it following the company policy? That's often overlooked. And the company, many companies, many companies are over storing and over keeping their data, which is another data governance no. So that in itself is the inability to properly delete their data, over keeping their most sensitive data, and that just puts companies at risk for cybersecurity breach, data breaches. Why companies should keep more sensitive data than they should be. It's something. It's because they don't have the ability to properly delete it in time. So these are all issues that affect AI, because if AI models are inadvertently biased or overweighted in old, deleted, potentially outdated information, that's not good as well. And that's the problem I saw, at least late last year. Companies were just pointing their chatbots directly into a file share and not even looking at the quality, and if the documents are even relevant, or if they're duplicates of the same document over and over again. It's just going to create more of a weighted bias. um, so hopefully companies are learning from their mistakes, or learning lessons, as they continually uh, release. And so very interesting, I think, in terms of all aspects of not just data quality, but the complete data lifecycle management of data.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like there one is sometimes a difficulty to get investment and to invest in data governance and management because you don't see those results until long term. But then we have this over desire to hold and to store on to data that we may not need or know what we're doing with, that puts us at risk. And so it sounds like a lot of us need to, one, not be data hoarders and really identify the value of our data, and two, be really good communicators in communicating that value of quality data and showing what that looks like for the business processes. So if you could give organizations just three quick pieces of advice in terms of wherever you're at, how to take your data quality and management to the next level, what would that be?
Mm, good question. Three things. One I would say is, simplify your data assets. whether it's um, deduplicating your data policies or streamlining the number of business rules you have. um, Simplifying your data assets allows you to be able to automate your processes better, automate your controls management. And I've seen this done at one of our financial services companies, where they just had, for example, way too many um, classification levels for their data. It was much simpler once they simplified their taxonomy, their data taxonomy, and they were able to really streamline their the alignment of their controls to their data assets. That's one thing. I think that a lot of companies over the years have, come to too many duplications. So being able to work cross functionally across your security, privacy, legal teams to really come to a better agreement, I think would help. Um, Secondly, is to really take stock of the existing not just your technology, but what data assets you have, what duplications in processes you have, and really being able to um, build stronger cross-functional partnerships is key. I would say is a third one. The cross-functional partnerships is key because it can start with a simple project. As simple as something like data deletion, or something that's really common across the board, or how long you should be keeping emails for, and that's a HR issue. It's legal, security, technology. So starting with small problems and being able to then work towards the more complex compliance related ones, I think is key. But starting somewhere is starting anywhere is important. And if I were to add a fourth one, um, I think, as you mentioned earlier, the storytelling is key. So having those skill set within the data team to be able to story tell the value, and being that squeaky wheel in terms of, if you're in a room with executives and you're the data squeaky wheel person that just continually advocates and pushes for data governance. Being able to prove it on the business siloed level is important, like, to demonstrate that it works. But what's hardest for most companies is that enterprise data governance has to come across the board. And I've always worked in enterprise initiatives, and that is the most challenging. Like, I've heard one of my former chief data officers say it's like watching an iceberg move. It's slow. You're never going to see any type of movement or progress made. Um, but it still needs to happen, right? So that's what enterprise data governance is like for me.
One of the things that I admire a lot about you is not only in regards to just an amazing career and being an advocate and spokesperson across the globe, you're such a strong advocate for women in the space. And I know you're one of the founding members of Women Leaders in Data and AI. You also advise a lot of several startups within the organization. What what is your feeling about mentorship, and why do you take the time to make sure you give back to others in your career and the work that you do?
Sadie, I'm a huge believer in mentorship, sponsorship, networking. It all goes hand in hand. And I've been lucky. One of the first jobs I had was at S&P Global. It had a built-in woman in data leadership group. I was able to join and participate. It also created opportunities for mentoring, group mentoring, reverse mentoring. I made sure I was always a part of these programs because, one, I knew that I could learn some of these skills. Two, meet new people across the company. And so I've taken those lessons, and every other corporate company I've worked for since then had some remnants of a woman in data, woman in tech group, and I've always been a big advocate of it because one, I've never seen, working in financial services 10, 15 years ago, I didn't see many women leaders in that very senior level. As an Asian American, even fewer, far and fewer, just because working in financial services and technology, it's very male dominated. Um, and also as a younger professional, you don't see, you don't that's not represented as well. It's more senior level people on sitting on the leadership. So why I believe it's so important and I advocate so heavily is because I want to make sure that people see that, yes, an Asian woman who is short by nature but has a loud voice in this community, in this space. And now that I work on the vendor space, it's also very not represented, very well either. So being able to continually have this voice is personally important to me, to make sure that all the women that I talk to, all the Asian women that I talk to across the world can see that yes, it's possible. Yes, they can stand up for themselves. Yes, they can advocate for their career, um, and create new opportunities. Because I mean, for the longest time, I never knew this type of career that I've created for myself is possible. And I want people to know that you don't have to, if you do data management, you don't have to be stuck at your desk for your entire life. It's not, there's so many different flavors of a data governance role and career that you can have and build for yourself. So that's really my personal motivation, and really helping people is another thing. Of course, I've had fantastic mentors that have helped me, mentored me, given me advice, and I want to do the same. So that's another big motivation for me as well.
No, I just love that quote that you can't be what you can't see. And so I love that you're out there and about, showing people that, hey, there are women working in this space. There are Asian women working in this space. You can be anything from it on the client side to on the vendor side, whatever that looks like. And so there's so many ways to kind of lead that path forward. And so I just appreciate you having that voice in the industry. And I know just being such an inspiration for so many individuals out there, and myself included.
No, Sadie, I want to say the same about you because when I was, again, growing up in my career, there was no woman in data, this group that you created, right? So I wish, when I was progressing in my career, there was a support group. I've had to spend a lot of energy finding my team of supporters or my mentors. It took a lot of energy to network, and it shouldn't be that difficult, right? It should be more built in amongst, especially amongst your peers, and to be able to connect to people that are above and below you as well. But I would say I worked my ass off to build my network. Um, but it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, so that's what I love about women in data. Just this, built-in network community of help and resources, and just people that, wherever I travel to, whatever city, I know there's a woman in data chapter. I know when I go to UK or London, just reaching out. There's already a built-in network, and that's fantastic. It helps so much with breaking the ice. And if you're in a conference and you don't know anybody, but you say, "Hey, anyone here, woman in data member?" And at this point in time, I'm sure there's a dozen or so more, and it helps with just instant networking connections. And that's what I wished I had for myself, but you built it for this generation. So I really applaud you, so Sadie.
It takes all of us coming together because there would be no women in data without each of us being here. Then it would just be a woman in data. And that wouldn't be very fun. But you make such a great point with the conferences because I know the first time I went to a conference, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have that much fun. And I just saw, just even this past week, there was the Databricks conference and some members said, hey, is anybody going to it? And they all were able to get together and meet up. And like, what a difference having a conference buddy makes. I mean, that's a night and day difference of like having a great experience or having a terrible experience.
Yeah, no, I would say that early on in my career, I would be all alone. I didn't know anybody. I was always, at conferences, I would be standing in the corner, hoping to make eye contact with somebody or meet a friendly face. And, people go to these events and sometimes they're clicky, right? They're just not always open to making new connections, but it makes any new member more comfortable if there's any commonality as this, and then it makes them more open to like expanding their network and reaching out to other people outside as well. But it's such a huge, I've never realized the importance of it until recently, really. So
Same. Even I started it, and I had an internal voice that said, "Hey, you need a community if you're going to survive in this industry, right?" And I'm glad I listened to that internal voice. And then it took me later, 10 years later, to realize the importance of it. So that's that's my piece of advice for anyone today. If you have something in your heart that tells you you need to do this, go do it, and then you'll figure out why you were told to do it later. So. As we wrap up today, I'd love to know if you have one piece of advice for younger professionals or even for your younger self. If you could go back and tell your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
wow. I think for today's generation, I think in when it comes to anyone looking for a career in data and data governance, there's so many companies, whether it's a startup company or an established financial services or retail company. I mean, really be able to learn all aspects, not just of your job, but understand, all the inputs that comes into your job and how it's being used across the company. So being able to look and understand the bigger picture of your role. And I swear to you that every junior employee is going to think that their role is insignificant or it doesn't add value. But try to take a different perspective and try to really see the importance and understand that importance of what you do and articulate that value to someone who's not on your team. I think that perspective, just changes the way you see work. So being able to expand, I would say, expand on your viewpoint, and just take a step back and look at what you do and be able to say, and explain the value that it has in the larger picture. So I would say, so many things, but that's one advice. I mean, if I were to squeeze in a second one is, I also mentor high school students because I really love to drive the value of the pipeline. There's so many I see high school students that are so smart, so driven, but they lack the confidence. So that's why I always feel that just that's the easiest mentoring you can do, is, and what I would say to high school students is have that inner confidence in yourself and belief, and not arrogance, I would say, but it's a difference. There's a fine line between arrogance and confidence, but being able to really know that you're you're secure in yourself, but also you're open and have this growth mindset to learn and be open to new ideas. I think that's so important, whether you're 18 years old or you're 45, 50 years old. Just continually building on that is going to be key to continually evolving your career, growing your career. We know that AI is going to change and and for us we have to be a part of it. So in order for to be an active part of it and to leading it, you really have to have that continually growth mindset and evolve. So be open to that. Change is key. And I mean, I've seen many people, for some of my former colleagues, that just been you can't be closed off in terms of learning and understanding new technologies. So yeah, I would. So that was, sorry if that was two.
No, they were both great pieces of advice. And for all the listeners, you got a bonus today and got an extra piece of advice. But yes, I couldn't agree anymore. We can all broaden our perspective, right? I think whether you're a young professional or, even as an adult, right? That's why traveling is so great, to taste different food and see different cultures and broaden your perspective of just really the beauty of humanity and how we all work and live and play. So, Peggy, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I just so much appreciate everything you do personally in the industry and for women in tech. And I'm excited to keep seeing you lead the way and keep cheering you on. So thanks for taking the time to come and chat with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And we all have to be there for each other to support, cheer each other on, encourage us. I mean, there's good days and bad days. We all have to be there, stick it out with each other.
And to all of our listeners, a big thank you. Remember to stay curious and keep learning. And we'll catch you next time on the Data Bites podcast. Bye bye, everybody. If you are enjoying the conversations you are hearing today, we encourage you to continue to be a part of the conversation and join a community of like-minded, extraordinary women. With our free community membership, you're stepping into a realm where learning, networking, and growth are at the heart and soul of what we do. Connect with Women in Data's global community and network with our chapters, all for free. But why stop there? Upgrade your membership with a special offer for Data Bytes listeners by getting $20 off a pro membership, in which you'll receive access to over 300 classes, leadership training, and exclusive events. If you're interested in mentorship and networking, we've got you. From monthly thought leadership webinars to exclusive networking events and a diverse on-demand mentorship program, the connections you'll make here are boundless. Join us and be part of a vibrant network. Dive into our book clubs, growth groups, and industry-focused gatherings. Women in Data is not just a community. It's a movement, a place where innovators, changemakers, and leaders come together to shape the future. Visit womenindata.org to join or use the special discount code in the show notes. Together, let's drive change one data byte at a time.